So we talked about trades with this Browns roster, but what we haven't talked about is the actual Browns roster. So what I'm going to do is rank and put in different categories all the different members of the Cleveland Browns or significant contributing members of the Cleveland Browns, give them all a ranking and talk about where they stand and what their future might be with this club. But before I do that, I want to give a quick shout out to the patreon.com dog check tier members. And as always, I start with Michael Matique, Rob Farron, Kyle Stouffer, Lukey from Munich, David Roth, J Guy 101, Musty Taco, Joe Bobby, Keith Kirkhack, Brad Calbo, Daylon W, James McGinty, Arenda Hall, Rex Kaufman, Chad Gimme, David Molinado, Andrew Sadejo, Dylan Hill, Josh Bendor, Eric Green, Jaleel Salim Jr., Martha Krusna, Mark M, TJ Showman, Stuart Moore, Bobo Regretti, Anthony O, David Arndt, Robert Jermaine Jr., Dave Mike May, John Cummings, Andrew Hirsch, Seth Miller, the only Browns fan in Wisconsin, Curtis Bayer, Batman, Rush Sharir, Barack Kumar, John Alver, Beerman 069, Masayua, Buds of Roland, James Nemo, Mac House, Reeve Hertz, Philip Wilcoxon, Marie Vivert, CK, Keith Anderson, Sean Barron, Gakus Pisano, Dom Gazzulo, Nick Nasty, Ian Whitaker, Colin 216, Anthony Latham, Christian, Matt Bond, Dave Strong, Michael Stone, Soul Train, Charles Work, Billy, Michael Holden Acton, Moose Gentry, Patrick F. Austin Z, Mark Burnett II, Andre Griffin, Otis Wolf, IT Rex, Greg Ehlers, Austin Bolin, Jesus Serrano, Chris Phones, Picktown Brown Backers, Mark Kahn, Max Out Dojo, and Water Bear Marketing. Again, guys, thank you so much for sticking with me and continuing to be Patreon members throughout the offseason. Your help is instrumental to this channel. Now let's get into the ranking. All right, y'all, we are here. This is the big one, the massive roster ranking. Now, look, I don't have 53 players on the screen right now because, quite frankly, there are only but so many players that are going to be worth giving a grade to or really worth ranking because it's just you don't get to see that much out of everybody in a single season. But that being said, I'm going to do my best to give as many people rankings as possible. We're going to do this in alphabetical order, and also I'm going to explain to you the tiers I have set up. At the top, you're going to see pillars. These are guys who are building blocks, who are essential pieces to the franchise and team that you're trying to build for the future and that you're going to need. So these are going to be the pillars, right? There's only going to be but maybe a handful of these guys that you can't afford to lose, guys that you must lock down. Great is somebody who had a great season above expectations, obviously, and really outperformed what people expected. Good is good. So a good season, not a great season, not a disappointing season, or not a season that people expected. So above average there. Expected is exactly what it sounds. It's what we expected coming into this, did not exceed any expectations, but didn't really massively disappoint any expectations either. You're going to see a lot of guys probably in this tier right here. And then disappointing is just flat out, wow, that was kind of what I expected of you, I did not get type of disappointment there. So that is what the tiers are for the season. I think I can already see a couple of missing names. Larry Ogunjobi, I don't have him in here. I'm going to put him in good. So Larry Ogunjobi, just mentally put Larry Ogunjobi in good. I forgot to get his headshot, and I don't want to restart this video. So I'm going to start after you mentally put in Larry Ogunjobi. We're going to start with Adrian Claiborne here. And I'm going to put him at expected. You didn't get too much out of him. You didn't get too little out of him. You got exactly what you expected, which was a backup defensive end that can hold his own, but not somebody who really changed the Browns season. Now, this is going to be a big one. Andrew Sadejo, right? I know a lot of you guys put him in disappointing. He was trash. Expected. This is what you should have expected from Andrew Sadejo. I don't know how you go into the season expecting Andrew Sadejo to be a starter when he was never signed to do that. So that was more for injuries why he had to play a lot. Blake Hance is a guy who goes in good because, yeah, he played 2 games, but, man, he played massive roles in those 2 games he was in the Cleveland Browns, right? He was the emergency guard at the end of the game for the Cleveland Browns against Pittsburgh in the playoffs, and then he was the emergency left tackle against Kansas City. Both situations held up pretty well. That's above expectation, man. That's pretty good. All right, Austin Hooper. He made some great catches in the playoffs, and that's what gets him to good, but he was hovering at expected. And that's not a great place to be if you are the top earner from your free agency class. So I would put him at good. He came through in some big moments, so ultimately that put him up there. All right, Baker Mayfield, put him in pillar. Yeah, pillar. He's a franchise quarterback, obviously. He is the guy of the future. He is the dude who's going to be leading this franchise for a very long time. He's your quarterback. He's the number 1 overall pick from a couple of years ago. He went 4,000 yards, 30 touchdowns, 8 interceptions. That's franchise stuff. He's a pillar. He's a main building block. He's a guy you're going to need. This is actually Blake Hans, so he's going to be in good. That's Andy Janovich. But same thing goes for Andy Janovich. Limited snaps, but put him in good. Cody Parkey. Yeah, guys, I'm going to put Cody Parkey in good. He was pretty good this year. He was above expectation. I felt like when they signed Cody Parkey, we might be looking for another kicker the week after. Did not look for another kicker all year. Did not give you that much of a reason. Had some shaky moments here and there. But all in all, he was good enough. And that's all you needed out the kicker. David Njoku, somebody who I definitely thought was going to be an expected to cut this season, turned out to be pretty good. Pretty good here. Tight end room in all had too many drop issues. Surprisingly enough, the guy with the least detrimental drops I've seen all year, which is like he wasn't dropping first downs. He wasn't fumbling like Harrison Bryant was fumbling. These are the things that David Njoku normally drives you crazy with. He didn't do a lot of those. Like his drops came in the end zone at times, which, it's just part of the David Njoku experience, but he'll make some great plays to make up for it. He was actually pretty good. And now I am actually excited to see what they can do with a bunch of good tight ends next season. And maybe you can add some more speed in the wide receiving room. I wonder how that offense is going to look next year because it could be interesting. Great is going to be Denzel Ward. I would put him in pillar if he could stay healthier, but he just doesn't stay healthy enough for me to feel comfortable making him a pillar of this team for the future. He is a great corner. He's a great cover corner. He's one of the best in the NFL when healthy, but the when healthy thing is starting to become too much of a question mark at this point, right? It's been 3 seasons, 3 years filled with injuries. He's great when he's out there, but when he's out there is always the question. And that's starting to become a real concern as he enters his 4th year. You start talking about 5th-year option with him. I'm pretty sure they're going to pick it up with him because he's too good of a player not to pick up for that 5th-year option. But as far as being a pillar, being somebody that you're going to make a lot of room for when it comes to after this 2-year window with this team, to extend him, to keep him on this team, I just don't know. He has to show that he can stay healthy for a couple of seasons to put himself back in that conversation. Dearness Johnson, somebody I'm going to put in good, was serviceable in his role as a backup running back. I liked him a lot. Donovan Peoples-Jones was good above expectations this year. Harrison Bryant's going to be the first guy in disappointing. Look, this does not mean I'm down on Harrison Bryant, but the camp this dude had was amazing. He put together one of the best camps a Browns tight end has put together in a long time, and he just did not have that kind of a season you thought he was going to have. This is somebody you thought was going to be able to unseat David Njoku as the second tight end, be able to take significant snaps, but drops and fumbles just became a problem with him to the point to where the Browns just gave him less snaps because they felt like they were kind of rolling back his development by having him out there too much. So Harrison Bryant, there's a ton of potential there. I feel like in a couple of years, this is going to be the best tight end on the team. But right now, this season, his rookie year, based on what he did in training camp, it was disappointing. Jack Conklin, great Jack Conklin this year. All pro, first team, all all NFL first team. How can you complain? Not David Njoku. Jacob Phillips, good. I'm going to put him in good tier here. Felt like he had a good season, showed some flashes, not a lot of consistency, but not what you were axing out of him. Made some great plays in that first game against Pittsburgh. Again, Jacob Phillips, somebody who you could see the light at the end of the tunnel with, but it just looks like that light is about a couple of seasons away. So better than I expected. Saw the field more than I expected him to see. Definitely didn't see him taking snaps away from Mack Wilson this early in his career. So that's why he's above expected. But definitely a good season for Jacob Phillips. Jamie Gillian, underrated, but great season from him. Punts, whenever you needed to get somebody pinned, he did it. No bad punts really this year. You knew he had a couple of shanks last year, so no shanks. Good season. That's going to be why Jamie Gillian is going to be in the great tier. All right, Jarvis Landry, I'm going to put him in pillar, and this isn't because of his production, right? His production was not insane this year. He did not have insane production, but he is also more important behind the scenes, right? When you talk about building the culture, when you talk about locker room leadership, when you talk about changing the mindset of a locker room, right? These are all things that Jarvis Landry has been massively helpful in developing. Like, I don't think you have this Browns team if it's not for Jarvis Landry. And as important as Baker Mayfield's leadership is for that, is just as important that Jarvis Landry's leadership is for that. I think if there's ever, like, if this team ever achieves greatness, right, wins a Super Bowl or something, when they make a documentary about this team, Jarvis is going to have a heavy role. Like, we're going to understand how important Jarvis was in the future to building the Browns to where they are, to assisting that locker room culture into being a true leader. But I can already see it just from the outside looking in. Great player there. Now we're going to talk some offensive linemen here. J.C. Treader, great. He's held up well for a guy who injuries was his issue. He has played through a ton in his career for the Browns, has not missed a snap. Awesome season by J.C. Treader. Jedrick Wills had a great season for a rookie. Look, he struggled in run blocking. Most rookie left tackles struggle in run blocking, especially when they're pass blocking specialists. A lot of the adjustment from college to the NFL is building that strength to be able to hold up in the NFL, unless you're like somebody like Mekhi Becton, who is like a alien when it comes to how big and fast he is. You're not going to excel at run blocking early in your career if you're a left tackle. So that's not really a red flag with me. The great pass blocking, though, that's exactly what you expected out of Jedrick Wills. Was a huge part to why this offensive line could be top level. And then you got Joe Bitonio. Another great season by Joe Bitonio. The Browns had a lot of great players this year. All right, so Jordan Elliott is a guy who I'm going to put in expected. Had the season you expected out of him, right? Nothing great, nothing above average. Filled in spots, but didn't really stand out. You know, you're hoping that he develops along the line. He was always a long-term prospect, so you would like to see more out of him, but he didn't disappoint you in any major way. Kareem Hunt, I'm going to put him in great season. Held up well when Nick Chubb went out. You would like to see more development out of him, right? You would like to see him maybe not be so one-cut-ish with his run style, you know, see the second lane that can open up at times like Nick Chubb can. But there I go again, expecting somebody to be Nick Chubb is kind of like not realistic. He's a really good running back. He held down the fort when Nick Chubb was not there. So great season for Kareem Hunt there. Definitely was all the dual threat and all the running threat that you needed this season. I'm going to put Carl Joseph. Oh, man. I'm going to put him in good. He was slightly better than I expected in run defense. He was a little bit worse in pass defense, but I think it averages out to being a little bit, so I'm putting him in good. All right, so he's going to be in good there. I actually do want the Browns to see if they can bring him back for some extra depth, and he can help out with the linebackers a little bit, and we'll see there. But, you know, I'm not dying on a hill on that. Kendall Lamb, I put him in expected. Held up well when he was out there for one game. Other games he didn't, like the Jets game, he just didn't hold up too well there. So, you know, you're just going to put him in expected. Disappointing for Kevin Johnson. Had a really good camp. Looked like he was going to be a really strong slot corner. Up and down all season, man. You couldn't get a hold on what kind of play that you could expect out of him. It was definitely disappointing. Kadero Hodge, I'm going to put him in good. And I'm going to put him in a strong good category right here because he actually was a lot better than people thought he was going to be. I mean, people didn't think this guy was going to see snaps or make the team. He played well. He was a nice, compliment to the lack of wide receivers that Baker had, especially at the end of the year. You talk about Jarvis being out there injured, Rashard being out there, and then Donovan Peoples-Jones, Kadero Hodge helped out there. He's also pretty good on special teams as well, so that's why I'm going to put him in good. All right, Mack Wilson is up, and disappointing. He's probably the biggest disappointment on the Browns this season. You came into this season legitimately thinking, he's going to make a turn. He's going to be a star player on this defense. He's going to hold down the fort at linebacker. Ended up with healthy DMPs at the end of the season. Not great for Mack Wilson. I know he had the injury early on that kind of shook him out at the beginning of the season, but as the season progressed, as he had plenty of time to come back from that injury, he just never, stabilized his level of play and lost snaps to guys like Sione Takitaki, guys like Malcolm Smith, guys like BJ Goodson. He ultimately lost his role in the rotation to Jacob Phillips. So very disappointing season for Mack Wilson. Hopefully he can bounce back, but maybe the system just isn't a fit for him anymore. Malcolm Smith, though, for as disappointing as Mack Wilson was, Malcolm Smith was a great pickup there. Now, he didn't have a great season, even though he was top 10 when it comes to coverage linebackers in the NFL. But based on what you expected, a guy you brought in the middle of camp, you could have expected more out of a linebacker than you would have gotten out of Malcolm Smith here. So I'm definitely going to put him in great there. MJ Stewart. This is a guy they picked up as a flyer, ended up playing a little slot corner. And you know what? He got burnt a lot this season, but he also made some plays specifically at the end of it. 3 interceptions, I believe, against Pittsburgh in the last 2 weeks or something crazy like that, or at least 2 interceptions in the last 2 weeks. So definitely good there. And if I'm going to put him there, I'm just going to put Sheldrick Redwine there. You guys know I'm not a big fan of Sheldrick Redwine. I think he's not a great safety. But he also made some key plays, right, at the end of the season and in some key games, right? You talk about the pick against Indy. He had the pick against Big Ben. I think he had like 2 of them. I don't know. He's been through a lot of picks. It's hard for me to count who had what. So got to give credit where credit is owed in that sense. And also, Taki's going to go in good. Not consistent in pass coverage, right? That's my big thing with Taki. You can't have him out there on every down. But to his credit, 2 interceptions this year. You would never know he's not a good coverage linebacker because when teams throw it right to him, he at least catches it. So that's great for Taki. He made some great plays this year, showed some great development, and I do think there's a role for him as a situational linebacker on this team. I just don't think he's an every down guy. Pillar, Myles Garrett. Do I need to explain why Myles Garrett and Nick Chubb are pillars on this team? Do I? Does that need to be explained? Let me know in the comment section if it needs to be explained because I don't think it needs to be explained. Porter Gustin, he was expected. I thought he was going to be a little bit better than he was this year. He was expected. Had the expected season. A lot of guys on the defensive line just kind of had an expected season this year. Rashard Higgins, I'm putting him in great. This guy you wondered if it was going to make the team at the beginning of the year. Ended up becoming one of the leading wide receivers at the end of the season. If you just count like from the point that Odell got hurt, he was Baker's favorite target, was extremely helpful. Look, there are some moments here where you wish he would have had a better instinct to hang on to the ball, right? He had a couple of fumbles in the Baltimore game, and he had the one, we ain't going to talk about it against the Chiefs. But when you needed a big play, when you needed a long third down, when you needed somebody to get open down the field against Cincinnati in a clutch situation, Rashard Higgins was consistently there, and it's inexplainable how he is always open at the right time when this guy does not have tremendous speed, not a tremendous route runner, doesn't even have the most reliable hands in the world, but when he's out there with Baker Mayfield, it just makes sense. It just does. It doesn't make sense in any other context, but when he's out there with Baker Mayfield, it makes sense, and he is productive with him. I don't get it. I understand why so many coaching staffs have come in here and not given him playing time based on what he does in practice. But when he's out there on the field with Baker Mayfield, it just all makes sense. It's the weirdest thing in the world. I'm not even going to try to quantify it. It's just one of those things in football that just makes sense. Ronnie Harrison was great this year too. He showed that if you get him and you just fill that free safety role with somebody competent, right? Maybe Grant Delpit comes back healthy. Maybe you trade for somebody. Maybe you sign somebody in free agency. Then a lot of the issues you had with your back end might go away drastically, and he could develop into a really good, strong safety. I like what they have there with Ronnie Harrison. I like what they have with Grant Delpit. I hope the Browns bring in one more versatile, athletic safety, and I think a lot of these issues that the Joe Woods off defense had this year might go away a lot more in 2021. All right, we're going to put Stephen Carlson in expected, Tavier Thomas in expected, and we're down to the last three. All right, Wyatt Teller, great. Does this even need to be questioned? He had one of the best guard seasons in recent NFL history. We're going to put Sheldon Richardson, good, great, good, great, good, great, good, great, good, great, good, great, good, great. Put him in good. So he's the closest to great out of anybody in this tier. The consistency was there. It's just the level of play didn't reach the height that I felt like it should have consistently enough, if that makes sense. I felt like in a lot of points in the season, he needed to be the second guy to step up next to Miles, and he just wasn't able to do that consistently enough, but he showed flashes. He was this close to having a great season. Just this close. It just wasn't enough. And then another guy's going in good is Terrence Mitchell. Terrence Mitchell, I felt like held up well with all the injuries that they dealt with in the secondary, right? Yeah, Greedy Williams, supposed to be the second corner, goes out. This guy starts all season. Held up pretty well. Didn't get burnt a lot. Like, he wasn't the guy getting burnt in the secondary. He was pretty good whenever he was on whoever he was. Denzel Ward, pretty fine there. It's just everybody else in between had issues. So that's my ranking for this roster. I hope I didn't forget anybody. I feel like I did. But if I did, let me know in the comment section below. But again, guys, thank you for watching. Let me know your rankings down in the comment section below. But again, guys, have a great day. Have a good night.